Why do these Greek statues smile? If you look this up online, this is the most that you'll find as an answer. It was possibly to suggest that the subject was alive and infused with a sense of well-being. The thing is, that doesn't fully answer the question. Why is it happy to be alive? Why is it infused with a sense of well-being? Are other periods not also supposed to show this? Why is it the archaic smile from Greece? And this is what is missing from art history in a much more big-picture way, which has left students uninspired by the field after its character and style shifted in the early 20th century. In this video, I'm going to be referencing the ideas of 5 great art theorists that are seldom read today, which actually answer this question and broaden your understanding. But first, here's another answer that you may stumble upon, which is, I think, an even worse explanation that you often find in art history studies, the overly technical and scientific one. Quote, "It has also been suggested that it is simply the result of a technical difficulty in fitting the curved shape of the mouth to the somewhat block-like head typical of archaic sculpture." No, this bogus technical answer is wrong, and it's part of the problem with art history. You can see how it makes no sense. The great art historian Alois Riegel even wrote about this trend in his own time of the 1890s, when he destroyed the rival art theorist Gottfried Semper's theory that function dictates form, that art and specific designs developed the way they did because it was simply functional. Riegel successfully challenged this argument by explaining how art history has its own telos. Yet somehow these explanations are still in high currency. There has to be a reason, a guiding image, a vision that needs to come to life in the mind of the artist. This is how art is created. We have to go back to an old forgotten man, Ernst Buchor, who was kicked out for being too much of a humanist. Buchor created a system for explaining the historical periods of Greek art, which was a common practice among all the great art historians. The world of foreshadowings referred to the geometric age, where the future of Greek art was foretold in those little figures on geometric ware. Next was the world of reality, the archaic age, where these monumental life-size sculptures were first created. And then the world of high destiny, referring to the fruits of high classical art. And lastly, the Hellenistic age, which he calls the world of appearances. On the archaic age, where the archaic smile is present, he wrote, "The substantive life of the world of reality presents itself with a special unbroken warmth and materiality. Here the statues engage us so that we should like to reply to their speech, shake their hands, stroke their horses, cringe before their lions. These limbs breathe out hot life, these gazes radiate the fire of youth. Not even the minutest part is conceived abstractly. No, everything is filled to tautness with burgeoning life." So, in this age of art, the Greeks attempted to actually depict everything as it really is. They were unhappy with the distance between their initial abstract noetic forms and what reality actually looked like. The Hellenic eye was too keen and observant. They had to reinvent themselves artistically and try a completely new method in order to reach their eventual artistic destination as a culture, as the art historian Rhys Carpenter says. They strove for realism and detail with the rudimentary artistic tools and techniques that they had available at this time. Carpenter wrote that every little part of the body and each strand of hair is analyzed and invented as a type or a self-contained motif, as if it could be plucked off separately, rather than flowing with the individual whole body, like in the classical period. The Greeks enjoyed this moment as a way to be in love with being itself, which is the fundamental key to their worldview. This organic impulse of the Greeks was absolutely vital to their character and future in all areas of culture, and here it shows itself artistically in an impressive way. This is the importance of the archaic world of reality. and no one writes about it so perceptively and cutting to its very core as Bouchour does. Bouchour writes, "These statues are not representations of personality, nor of destiny, nor of momentary states in the sense of later ages. Their standing and sitting, their gaze and expression mean something quite different. They define the intact life sphere of substantial reality, and they do this to perfection. It is the nature of this life sphere not to split up human existence into characters. It is reserved for the dawning of the world of high destiny to prepare the way for that later. The world of reality belongs together in this respect to a degree with the world of foreshadowings, which laid hold upon the pulsating forces of life as such. But in the manner of differentiation, it goes farther and deeper. Male and female beings are gradually more distinguished in stature and head, while demonic primeval beings like Dionysus are set off from Apollonian figures. Beyond this, there is no differentiation. Gods do not stand out from human beings, and among themselves, they are only to be identified by the attributes they hold in their hands. In other words, they simply look like real people. Portrait statues stood out only through their added inscriptions, and it was only the inscription that brought the story of each great symbol further into the personal sphere. The drastic self-narration which is inherent in the tautly full forms is capable of, and often in need of elaboration through attributes or aphoristic lines. Yet these attributes and identifications are in no way intended to impart the slightest information about personal matters in a deeper sense, about individual fate, about what these gods and men have experienced and suffered. Over and over, those represented speak in the inscriptions, "I was dedicated by so-and-so," or "I am so-and-so." Immediately it is clear that the palpable life which fills these forms to the very brim also induces the figures to speak, and that these intensive pictures of life still possess vicarious power to a great degree. In conformance with ancient practice, many cult statues were still bathed and clothed. All were provided with gifts and surrounded with a company of votive statues, and with persons assigned to their service and keeping. Even the wild animals and fanciful beasts who join the human votive statues have the function of strengthening with their primeval power the choir of servants and of intensifying the brilliance of the sanctuary with their unimpaired life. Thus one might sometimes feel that a sacrilege was involved if a member of this circle got separated and given into the keeping of a Roman collector or a modern museum. Many artists' names have come down to us, and many were inscribed on the statues, which on occasion claim themselves to be feasts for the eyes and glorious gifts for the gods. The claims show an awareness of a double identity as living beings and at the same time created figures. This dualism is especially characteristic and also provides insight into the creative process and the creative consciousness of the masters. They felt themselves in no way to be artists, but rather master craftsmen, whose very hands and chisels were directed by the goddess. They themselves worshipped the statue as soon as it left their workshop. In other words, this is Greek art in the development of its actual stylistic form, without the individualized characters and their differing emotional portraits, their drama, the world of destiny, etc., that he explains afterwards. It isn't just abstract, inorganic, and geometric anymore, gesturing towards the forms in the place of bringing them fully out, And even though this art doesn't yet come alive with an intense spiritual life and character, it has the fire and liveliness of reality, of wanting to break out of its physical cage. It is content to be purely exactly what it is. Therefore, this is the first time life is put into the statues in Greek art. They literally come alive. That's what the archaic smile is for. It's a sign of this warmth and inner fire that Bouchoir wrote about, but also in a more simple and primal biological sense, simply excited to be alive, in love with life and with being itself. And this is not in the more spiritualized and advanced religious sense, but in a more uncanny and universal animistic way. It's simply to do with the constant presence of life and spirit inside all beings, undifferentiated. Stay tuned for part 2, which will come out next week, and remember to like this video and leave a comment below on your thoughts.